After we introduced 3 macroeconomic indicators, this chapter we're going to start talking about a financial market. The market is so-called the loanable funds market. Okay? And the loanable funds market is where savers meet investors. Okay? Savers save money, and you could imagine that they put the money into a bank account so that the banks can make loans to business investors. Okay? And at the beginning of this chapter, you would find that a lot of finance ABC stuff, okay, like financial markets, intermediaries, and even different financial structures. Okay. Also, I make several slides about the practical guidelines for stock and bond investment. But here we won't have enough time to, discuss these materials. So I will leave these for you guys to read. Okay, it should be quite straightforward. So our discussion here in this video will start with saving and investment. Okay, the two sides of the loanable funds market. Now let's start with saving. Okay, how much we save. Okay, let's first look at the private saving. This is how much the households save. Okay, together. Now let's use the capital letter S, private here. Okay. S private stands for private saving. This equals Y minus T. Y is our gross income. Okay, so we are following the notations we used in chapter 10. Okay, and Y stands for national output. It's also national income. Okay, now remember, all households need to pay taxes to the government. That's our obligation, right? So here, Y minus T is actually our after-tax income. In economics, this is so-called disposable income. Okay, so disposable income means money you can decide how you're gonna spend or save. Okay, the private saving depends upon our disposable income or after-tax income. It also depends upon how much we spend. That's our consumption here. Okay, so how much we make and how much we spend. All right, the second component of saving is public saving. Here, the word public, loosely speaking, means governments. Okay, all levels of the government. So in economics, when we talk about the governments, we would like to call it the public sector. Okay, so here, how much governments save, that's S public. It depends upon the government's revenue and expenditure. Okay, the government revenue would be taxes. Okay, the money flows into the government offices. The government expenditure, again, it will be G. Okay, one of the GDP components we introduced in chapter 10, right? Now here, T minus G, we might have different scenarios. The first one is T minus G is going to be greater than 0. In this case, we would say the government is running a surplus. Okay, or the T minus G could be equal to 0. So the government is running a balanced budget. The third scenario here is T minus G could be negative. So here it means the government is running a budget deficit. Okay, if you look at today's U.S. federal government, you would find that in the past more than 2 decades, year by year, we always run a budget deficit at the federal level. Okay, at the state and local level, you can also find many governments are running the budget deficit. Okay, so here is a budget deficit in surplus. Now, the last thing is we're trying to find the national saving. So all together, including the private and public sectors, how much we as a nation saves. Okay. Now here we could just simply use the uppercase letter S, which stands for saving. Okay. It is saving. It is also the supply of loanable funds, okay, on this market. So national saving equals private saving plus public saving. All right, only two components. Now here we just plug in what we already derived up there. Okay, so the private saving would be Y minus T minus C. Okay, and the public saving would be T minus G. All right, here we find a minus T and a plus T, so they can be canceled out. Right, so what's left over here is Y minus C minus G. Okay, the economic intuition is crystal clear. How much we as a nation save depends upon how much we make, that is Y here, and how much households together spend, that's our consumption, and how much our governments spend, that's government expenditure or government purchases. Okay. Now, here, let's take a look at the how savings or savers respond to the change in real interest rate. Okay. Now we're gonna put this on the graph. Okay. So the vertical axis would be real interest rate. Okay. The horizontal axis would be quantity of loanable funds. Now, why the vertical axis is real interest rate? Because when we save, we care about the returns from our saving, right? The returns from our saving would be real interest rate. So this is the nominal interest rate adjusted for inflation. Okay, that's where this R word comes from. All right. So that's why it's pretty much like the price of loanable funds. Okay, so like previously when we talk about the auto market, talk about the bottled water market, we put the price on vertical axis. Here the real interest rate will be the price of loanable funds. Okay, and we said that saving or savers provide funds on this market. So it looks like they're going to be on the supply side, right? Now, here we're just going to draw a regular supply curve, which is upward sloping. Okay, we said this is going to be the national saving here. Now, we need to show if on this market the national saving does slope upwards. Okay, and we already did several times in the past, right? So the first thing we could do is we could just simply pick 2 points here. Oops. A and point B here. Okay, so this is B and this is A. All right, and we're saying that we move from A to B. Okay? I don't know, somehow. All right, and we find that when we move from A to B along this curve, upward sloping saving curve, we find that on the vertical axis, the real interest rate goes up. Okay, and on the horizontal axis, we find that quantity of our saving goes up as a result. So let me write it here. R goes up, our national saving goes up. Does this make economic sense? Yes, we believe so. Okay? Because as we already said, R is the price or the return from our saving. So a higher interest rate means saving is going to be more rewarding. Okay, so for example, if the interest rate used to be 1%, okay, that means if you put $100 into a bank account, by the end of the year, you're going to receive $101. Okay, $100, that's your principal, and extra $1, that's the interest you earn. Okay, now suppose the interest rate goes up from 1% to 3%. That means you can make $2 more by saving $100. It does give you a stronger incentive to save more, right? So households, for example, would probably cut their consumption so that they can save more. Okay, and by saving more today, this means you can get more financial or monetary resources to spend in the future. Okay, all right. In the next video, we're going to continue our discussion about the investment, which is the demand side of this market.